Okay, so continue to part 3 of the Casey Anthony update of trial day 1, part 3. And this is where the state is calling George Anthony to the stand. And when George Anthony is called to the stand, Casey kind of looked at her father for a second, but really wouldn't look at him too much. Really didn't look at him at all. Okay, so the state goes through his background and his life with Cindy and his career in law enforcement. And then they asked him, when did he find out Casey was pregnant? He said, Cindy and Casey, all three of them sat in the living room, and it was about May-June time frame of 2005. They asked him, how did he feel when he found out Casey was pregnant? And George said he was excited at first, to be a grandparent, and but he was also a little concerned that because she would be a young mother. She was a young mother, and she would be a single mother. And according to George's understanding, that Casey was working at Color Vision at the time of him finding out Casey was pregnant, which we believe that is true, that Casey really did work at Universal's Color Vision when she was pregnant, or before she was pregnant and while she was pregnant, whatever. And he said that Casey worked up to 2 or 3 weeks before Kaylee was born. Casey's facial expression in this time frame is that she's pissed that they're talking about Kaylee and not about her. They started talking about Kaylee at this time frame, and pretty much she looked mad because they weren't talking about her, that they were just talking about Kaylee. George said he met Jesse Grund on the day Kaylee was born, and Jesse didn't make a great first impression. Then they went into the DNA testing and all that good stuff. And he said he was ready to accept him in the family, especially if he was Kaylee's father, all this, that, and the next thing. And then he said they went into what Kaylee was called George and what Kaylee called Cindy. And George said that Kaylee started calling George JoJo because it was a lot easier than Grandpa. And I guess Casey used to call him Papa Joe. And Kaylee would call Cindy Cece or Grammy, but mostly Cece. George said Kaylee had a great vocabulary. She could turn on the TV, put in her movie in the VCR, go to the pantry, get peanut butter and jelly and bring a spoon and ask them to open it so she could have some peanut butter with a spoon. And they asked him, late spring, early summer of 2008, George believed that Casey was working, but he had some doubts. George said he wanted to believe Casey about working at Universal and said she still had her ID badge. Casey did bring out the name Zanny at the beginning of 2008, and that was who was watching Kaylee when she was at work, and when George and Cindy were working, and neither one of them could watch her. On the morning of 6/16/08, Kaylee came out. George spent some time with her and had breakfast with her, and could remember exactly what she was wearing. And I'm gonna come back to that point. And he said, remember that because that was the last time he saw little Kaylee. He says he first saw Casey about 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. He said it was a typical morning. George was watching a particular show. Kaylee came out, and Kaylee said she was going to go to see Zanny. Casey going to work, and Casey said she might stay at Zanny's because of her working late. George said he saw Kaylee and Casey leave that morning, and says he never saw Kaylee again after that morning. He said that was a normal routine. He would blow kisses to Kaylee and tell Casey to have a good day and drive safe and all this good stuff, and that was a normal routine for him every morning with the girls. And then he says they asked him, did you ever sexually molest Casey? He said no. Casey shook her head no, like this. Like, she just kept going. And I want to bring up a point. If nobody else is supposed to have reactions or emotions and this, that, and next thing, I understand that she's allowed to cry or whatever. But why is she allowed to shake her head? I don't understand. That's taking the jury's attention away from what is going on. I don't believe she should be allowed to be shaking her head yes or no. And then he denied everything that the defense opening statement was. He denied being present when Kaylee died. He denies disposing of Kaylee's body and putting duct tape on her nose and mouth. And this is when George started getting really emotional. And I just saw it in his eyes. He had nothing to do with it. I don't believe for a second he had anything to do with it. So then here comes Mr. Jose Bozo Baez himself to cross-examine George Anthony, which was really crazy because he was getting real nasty with him at a point. You could tell in the tone of his voice, and there was a lot of objections from the prosecution and a lot of sustains against Baez, and Baez was getting really ticked off about the fact that the judge wasn't allowing some of the questioning. George told, when Baez asked him about, well, what about when you went to the wedding and they noticed that she was pregnant, and George said he, had his own suspicions, but he wasn't for sure that she was pregnant, because that she hadn't actually come out and said it, and they hadn't actually went and had testing done. And George said that he told Rick it was no concern of his, and he said he had a feeling she was pregnant, but was not 100% sure. George said he never met the nanny or talked to the nanny on the phone. Then they bring up the Sports Authority. George says he went to the Sports Authority to see Casey, if Casey was working there, and if she was, to take her to lunch. And then Jose Baez, well, what was it? Were you going there to check up on her, or were you there to go take her to lunch? He says both. If she was working there, great. I was going to take her to lunch. Then he said, testify Kaylee did not drown in the pool, which I think this is the whole questioning was that he wasn't there when she drowned in the pool, so he had nothing to do with it. He didn't know nothing about it. And then there was a redirect from the state, and said they had they just touched on a little bit of a few things, and then they asked, did you have a brief discussion? They asked if he had ever talked to Casey about not working at Sports Authority, and he said they had a brief discussion about her not working there, but he just ended up letting it go. And at this point, Casey's looking around with no emotion. She just keeps looking around to everything but what's going on. And then he was excused off the stand. And that was the end of our day one. This is just in a nutshell. You're more than welcome to go watch the whole thing yourself. I pretty much try to pick out the key points and the key things that are very important, even though it is all important. But for those people who may not be able to watch it or may not have the time to watch the whole thing, this is especially for you. And then you might be able to go find those videos based on what I'm telling you, find the exact things I'm saying. And then they adjourned for the day. It was about 7 minutes before 5. They adjourned for the day. The jury went out, and then the judge said a few things here and there. So they would start 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. If the lawyers have anything to bring up before then they can bring it up 20 minutes before 9. And as Casey left the courtroom, she was talking to somebody. She just stops and, her little talking and smiles and walks off. The crazy chick knows she did it. The crazy chick knows nobody else was involved. The crazy chick is just trying to blame everybody else. This is the blame game, and I don't feel that it's right that she can blame everybody else but herself. And then say that her father and her brother molested her as an excuse of why she lies. That's absolutely ridiculous. I feel that this is just absolutely absurd. I mean, I'm very emotional because if it was my child, whether they fell in the pool or anything else. Oh, and that was one thing that that the state had brought up. They had asked them, I think I missed that part, hold on. I know I put it in here. maybe I didn't. But I do remember, okay, no, I didn't. But I remember one part is they said if he was there and Kaylee had drowned in the pool or whatever, he used to be in law enforcement, he would know CPR. He would know all this to try to help her. He said he would do everything in his power to help her. He would have done it if he was there. He would have called 911. And I'm going to tell you something, I've been saying this from the beginning. That man has nothing to do with this. I believe he thinks his daughter did it. I believe he hasn't really ever been in denial. I don't think that he's ever believed in his daughter. I think he's wanted to believe in his daughter, but just couldn't. Now, I believe Cindy Anthony has believed in her, and I believe Cindy Anthony is finally now waking up and smelling the roses, so to speak. And at one point, you know, you could see Cindy Anthony, she's just writing down notes. Whatever, like I said in my other video, that she shouldn't have been able to do that. But, I think there should be a lawsuit because she's discrediting her father's name and saying this, that, and the next thing. And guess what? Lee wasn't there. Lee was not there. I have not heard any reports about Lee being there at all. And guess what? Good. She ain't got nobody on her side. She wants to turn her back on her family that's been there for her since day one in those jail videos. And in one of those jail videos, Cindy even told Casey, oh, there's a big old rumor in the media saying that Kaylee drowned in the pool. And she's like, surprise, surprise. And laughs about it. That's where the whole drowning in the pool started coming up. That's when this whole story started. In the defense, what can we do? She's guilty. And I hope the jury does not fall for this. And this is just day one. I would love to get inside the minds of those juries. We shall see in a couple months when the whole trial is over with. So, good night, YouTube. I will, again, post tomorrow afternoon at their lunch recess about what has happened in the morning. I hope you guys stay tuned. And for all those people that have been leaving wonderful comments and watching my videos, thank you very much. It does mean a lot to me, and I have no problem working hard to keep these videos going for you. I really appreciate you guys watching. Thank you. If you have any questions or if you want to talk about anything, you're more than welcome. Let's Skype. Let's get it on video. Let's have a big discussion about this. This is my invitation. Let's have a big old discussion this week. Friday, Saturday, Sunday time frame. Let's sit down and do a Skype call. Start calling me at Skype. You know, write me a little message here on YouTube saying, hey, let's set a date and time to where you can call. We can make a video and do a great big discussion on what's going on. And I will also try very hard to continue my case history of the case as well. To try and show, especially if some things aren't brought into the trial. So have a good night, you guys.